Right guys, welcome back. Now I don't know whether some of you have noticed or whether you watched the video that I put up the other week. A couple of weeks ago I slipped on some ice and I've hurt my arm and my hand. So I haven't been doing much shooting. However, I have been doing research and I've been looking through my old videos and looking through old threads on the various forums that I'm a member of and watching YouTube videos. And I've noticed something. While there are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots, in fact I'd say a shitload of how-to videos covering various techniques and equipment, things like that, there are very, very few why videos. Now, as I've said before, techniques tend to be the solution to a problem. As in, a problem arises in any particular subject, somebody thinks about it, works on it and comes up with a technique which overcomes that problem. That's what techniques are. Now, a lot of the time, something which I have noticed in archery, is the original problem has been lost to the mists of time. I love that phrase, mist of time. They've been lost in the annals of time. They're no longer known, or if they are known, they're only known by a few people. You don't often see people talking about the why something was done, only about the how to do it. And this catches my interest every time I see something like this. So I thought I would do a couple of 3 videos, talking about the whys of some of these techniques that we take for granted today. The first one I'm going to talk about is the ubiquitous thumb release. Ubiquitous as in it's used with virtually every Asian, Oriental, Eurasian, Eastern European style of archery. Whether that's horse archery, charioteer archery, foot archery, it doesn't matter. Going back in history, the historic and traditional styles of archery, using, for instance, horse archery, Manchu archery, Kyudo, Japanese archery, Korean archery, coming all the way west into the Scythian, the Hungarian, Bulgarian, Ottoman, Turkish, North African, Phoenician, Assyrian, all these esoteric ancient types of archery use a thumb release. And as modern archery progresses and people become more interested in it, and more replica bows are being produced, more and more people are shooting thumb release. It's only natural. You want to do things historically. But not many people know the why of it. So I thought I'd try and give you my opinions on the subject. Now, I'm not saying that my opinion is the be-all and end-all. I'm sure there are some contemporary essays on the subject that date back in time, thousands of years. I'm sure there are some out there, but I don't have access to them. I've never seen them, and the treatises that I have read, I read them a long time ago, and memory, I'm getting old. But these are just my feelings. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get my trusty little Turkish bow. I love this bow, awesome bow. But I'm not going to shoot it, I'm just going to use it as a demonstrator. Now, what was the original problem that ended up with the thumb release technique being the ubiquitous? It's hard to know, but I have a theory. And it came to me as a result of something I did the other week on the Mary Rose bows. And it comes down to performance and desired performance and power of the equipment you're using. Now, there are a few things which are important within any particular archery style to get maximum performance, especially if you're looking at it from a military point of view. And we'll go to the Chinese. The Chinese, as far as anybody's aware, were the first to use the thumb release. There is actually a military treatise which, if I remember rightly, dates back to about 2700 BC. describing how to use the thumb release and how to train people to use the thumb release. Now, why was that so important? Why did they decide? Why did they not go with a 3-finger or even a pinch? Why the thumb release? I think I have an idea. The first thing you have to look at is the stature of the archer, as in how tall is the archer? How tall is the archer? Simple as that. Now, if we look at the archaeological record from 2,500 BC in China, the average height of a Chinese male seems to be around about 5'2", and it continues at that height of about 5'2", right up until the beginning of the Ming dynasty, which is, if I remember rightly, about 1350. And from 1350 onwards to present day, it starts to increase. But up until about 1350, it stayed fairly level at about 5'2". So if we go back to the beginning again, it might have been small, it might have been taller, it might have been shorter, we don't know. But if we work off 5'2", that gives you a complete, full arm span, as in fingertip to fingertip, of 62 inches. 5'2", 62 inches. Because your complete arm span is the same as your height. That gives you a half span of from tip of nose to tip of fingers of 31 inches. Now, when we're talking about archery draw length, when you grab hold of a bow, and say we're talking on a typical Chinese of the period half span of 31 inches from tip of nose to tip of fingers, by the time you grab hold of a bow, you've taken off 3 to 4 inches straight away. So we'll be conservative and we'll give them 3 inches, although it was probably nearer 4. Give them 3 inches. So that brings that down to 28 inches from the back of the bow to the tip of the nose. That's your half draw, that's your half span. It's down to 28 inches. Now by the time you look at the target, looking down the bow, if you're using what we might call a European draw to the nose, you're down to about, from 28 inches, 28 inches is there. So you turn your head, and that brings you 28 inches to halfway down your face, halfway between your eye and your ear. That's your 28 inches. Now if you're using a typical European style, shooting to the nose, that brings that down from there to about 24 inches. Now, 24-inch draw length doesn't give you a great deal of performance. Now we know that the Chinese bows of the time were classed as a long bow, because they were the same length as the archers were tall. So that's only giving you like a 24-inch draw from there to there. Is that going to give you the performance you need from the bow for a military application? I don't think it is. Now there's a couple of things you can do. Is you can beef up the bow and increase the basic draw weight of the bow. But that brings in a problem. As you beef up the bow, it comes down to here. The bow limbs get heavier, so they move more slowly, and you get to a point where you're actually losing performance. The next thing you could do is try lengthening the bow. Now we know the Chinese didn't do that. The Japanese did. They increased the length of their bows from about 60 inches to 120, 180 inches, 2.5 meters. The Yumi bows are 2.5 meters long. Massive bows. That's how they got over the problem of the lack of performance for their power weight. The Chinese didn't do that. So what did they do? They didn't thicken the bow, they didn't make it longer. So what did they do? The next thing you can do is increase your draw length. But you can only go so far, but we'll see. So we're going to go from a 24-inch draw at the tip of the nose. But we're going to bring it back. Instead of going to the nose, we're going to bring it back to the centre line, your half span, which we've already decided is 28 inches. So that's increasing things already. If you start off with a 100-pound draw weight bow, by the time you get back to 28 inches, you're probably looking at about 110, 120 pounds draw weight. Is that enough for your uses? It may be, maybe not. But we know that imperial Manchu bows go anything up to 150, 160 pounds draw weight. So again, you've got to increase your draw weight, your draw length, sorry. But we come to a problem. This is where we come to a problem. As you get back to 28 inches, yeah, the angle of the string to the arrow starts to narrow. Actually starts to become sharper, and you get to a point where, if I grab an arrow, now it's exaggerated on this length of bow because it's only a short bow, but you'll get the idea. As you draw, the string angle becomes more and more acute. If you watch the angle of the string to the arrow, and bear in mind my fingers start off the arrow and then get pushed down onto the arrow. So what do you do from there? You need to get your fingers out of contact with the arrow. So what did the Chinese do? And this is only part of the solution. They started introducing the thumb release. Now there's something, we don't know, I don't know which order this happened in. Did they come up with the thumb release to relieve string pinch first, or did they notice what I'm going to show you next first? There's something which happens, and it's all down to biomechanics, and you can try this yourself. If you were holding your hand upright in a drawing position, now we've already got to the center line, the half span draw length there, which for the Chinese is 31, well it's actually 28 inches. So we're at there. Now if you notice, there's not a great deal, you can go a little bit further, but things start to bind up. So if you're increasing the draw length, you get to 31, 32, 33. If you get to 33 inches, things start to really bind up. You can feel it in your back, you can feel it in your neck, and you can feel it in your elbow as well, and in your lats down the side. Things start to bind up as you get to 33 inches. Now we know the Chinese shot at 36 inches. Even though they were only 62 inches tall, they're actually shooting 36-inch arrows. Now how did they get from there? Because if you get to that point there, which we're only at 32, 33, things are starting to bind up to the point where you can't actually draw physically any further. What you can do is bend the other arm and push yourself forward. That increases your draw length slightly, but it also pushes your face into the line of the string. So that's impractical. So you get to that point there. Now, try this yourself. You come back to that point there, which is about, there's a 31, 32, 33, 33 inches maybe. Without bringing your bow arm back, things start to bind up and it can actually become quite tense. And it actually starts, you're getting into the territory of injury. There's a lot of strain there. But just try this. Go from the vertical grip, turn your hand over. Then all of a sudden, there's an extra 3 or 4 or 5 inches of draw length, which have come out of nowhere because you've changed the orientation of the radius and ulna in your arm, and you've changed the orientation of how the muscles are actually attached to the ligaments in there going into the biceps. You've changed that orientation. So you all of a sudden, you've gone from lock up there, turn your hand, to lock up back here, which increases your draw length. For somebody who is only 62 inches tall, with a half span of 31 inches, all of a sudden, you've added about 6, 7, 8 inches. You're up to 36, 37 inch draw. Because you've gone to a thumb release. Because you've twisted your hand over from the vertical string grip to a thumb release. You put your hand horizontal. Your thumb release, your string grip is now horizontal. And that's why I think the Chinese went to that. So they've still got the same length of bow. They've still got their, basically a long bow of between 60 and 70 inches, which is quite long for their height, but they've also increased the draw length. So if you start off with a 100-pound bow, you haven't increase the thickness of the bow, which slows the limbs down, but you've got a much longer, and if you just make the bow a little bit more flexible, we know if you go from, on average, add an inch in draw length, you add between 2.5 and 5 pounds in draw weight for every inch you add onto it. So if you go from 28 to 36, that's an extra 8 inches. So, yeah, an extra 8 inches. And if you've made your bow correctly, you might have just added 40 pounds draw weight. 85 to 45. 40. Yes, you've just added, gone from 100 pound draw weight at 28 to 140 at 36. And that, by anybody's calculations, for a war bow, whether it's a Manchu bow, a Japanese Yumi, an English longbow, 140 pounds is a usable bow. And because of the style of bows the Chinese use, it's a quick bow as well, it's a fast bow. So you've got the performance just by shifting from a vertical string grip to a horizontal and using the thumb. That's why I think the Chinese did it. Now, as we come further west, we start heading west from China into the steppe, the land of the Mongols, into the land of the Scythians in the northern steppe, come down to the eastern steppe, and we have Bulgaria, Hungary, places like that. You come down into the southern steppe, into what is basically into Turkey and the Ottoman periods, and then even further into the Assyrian, the Phoenician, the Mesopotamian. We see everybody's still using the thumb release, but the difference is the bows have got shorter. So as the bows have got shorter, with the desire to use them on horseback, for instance, if you look at the Golden Horde, which was like 1270s, again, they had an average height of about 5'2", but the length of the bow isn't as important because they're all on horseback. It's estimated that 80 to 90% of the Mongol armies were horseback warriors, horseback archers, with only a small token force on foot to tidy up after the battles. Most of the fighting was done on horseback, which means you need a small, manoeuvrable bow. Now this is where the other problem comes in of string pinch. As we showed, when you draw, if we grab the arrow again, as you draw with a short bow, now bear in mind this is an extreme version of a short bow, this is only a 40-inch bow. If you draw with a vertical grip, by the time you get to just 28 inches, that top finger is getting pushed down onto the arrow, which is going to affect your loose. You can do what the Slavs did, which is to put the arrow on the side, the finger on the side, but if you're not careful, you still get that same problem of the bottom fingers being pushed up into the bottom of the arrow, which again can affect your release. So what did they do? The Mongols had seen the Chinese and probably adopted Chinese archery techniques with the thumb release, and then took that around with them. I mean, the Golden Horde didn't arise until the 1200s, 1250s, but there were still Mongols travelling around. There were still other peoples travelling to China, such as the Scythians and people like that. So they would have seen these and have seen the way the Chinese used the thumb release and thought, that's going to work with my bow. So you go from the thumb release to a point where there's virtually no contact with the arrow at all, which is ideal. And it also allows you for slightly quicker shooting as well, if need be. So again, we have two problems, as in with pinch grip and with lack of performance, both solved by the ubiquitous thumb release. Right, there we go. Hope you found that interesting. As I said, that is just my take on the subject, my feelings about why the thumb release was adopted as a solution to a problem, and a brief look at what I think the original problems were that brought about the adoption of the thumb release. But like I said, that's just my own opinion. What do you think? I would really be interested to know if you have access to some treaties or written manuscripts, or you've seen them or whatever, and you know different. If you know what the reasons was, please tell me. I would love to know. Up to now, this makes sense to me. But if you know no better, please let me know. Anyway, take care. Stay safe. Keep swinging the sticks, and we'll talk again soon. Cheers, guys.